with the first pick.
Lawrence in a foot race. Will they catch him? Touchdown, Tigers!
The Jacksonville Jaguars select
Lawrence, back left corner of the end zone for Amari Rodgers, and they do it again. Another Clemson touchdown.
All right, welcome to another edition of TrevorCast. Matt Hayes, Hayes Carline, and Graham Marsh here with you. We certainly appreciate being with you today. Thanks to our friends at Claude Nolan Cadillac, beginning lasting relationship since 1905. And Matt, this was a fun episode because we've talked to a lot of experts and gurus and things like that. And we have talked to Darian Rencher, who was one of Trevor's really good friends at Clemson. But now we get to talk to somebody who sort of helped really hands-on with the process of Trevor Lawrence and sort of was along for this, what's been such a phenomenal ride to this point, and Joey King. Joey was the head coach at Cartersville when Trevor Lawrence played there. He's now the head coach at Carleton High School. But really fun getting a chance to talk to him about Trevor's development in high school.
Yeah, I think, the thing we really wanted to talk to him about was he's a guy who's been part of this Trevor train since it began. He's the guy who saw him as an 8th grader coming up into 9th grade and realizing, wait a second, I'm going to have to find a spot for this cat. And I think it was interesting to hear him talk about how, okay, here he was here, and now he's got to go through all this hype and expectations and everything about people talking about he's going to be the first pick in the draft when he was a sophomore in high school. And now here we are. So I think it was interesting to hear him talk about that, how Trevor dealt with that, how he dealt with it on and off the field, and how he just continued to progress in high school.
And I think one of the more enjoyable parts of this process of the TrevorCast and just us getting to know Trevor is been more what people say about him as a person, more so than the football player. The football player we could see and make our own conclusions that this kid's got the makings of something pretty spectacular. But to hear people that really know him and how humble he's been from the very start, that's not something that, I mean, it'd be great if he learned it. At the end of the day, you just want a humble, grounded person.
Right.
But it really feels like it is just an innate quality in Trevor that, Joey talked about the competition, and how well Trevor handled that. We saw that at Clemson with how well he handled it with Kelly Bryant. And it just seems like, and like you're saying, the superstardom that's been thrust upon him, it just seems like you couldn't have handled it any better.
Yeah, Hayes, I cannot tell you how many coaches that I've talked to, and I mean the winners, Saban, Dabo, Urban, all these guys, they all say the same thing. How you act and how you prepare off the field directly translates to how well you play on the field. And how you live your life off the field directly translates to how well you produce and how much success you have on the field. Clearly, he's doing things right off the field, Trevor Lawrence, and clearly it is translating to on the field. And if you can get that at the most important position on the field, your quarterback, then you've got something special.
Absolutely. Fantastic points. All right, without further ado, here is former Cartersville head coach Trevor Lawrence's high school coach, Joey King. Joey King joining us now, coached Trevor Lawrence at Cartersville High School, and we certainly appreciate his time. Coach, thanks so much for joining us. I'll just start with what was it like? What was your first impression? What did you heard about Trevor Lawrence before actually seeing him as a player, and then what were your first impressions of him?
Yeah, well, I took the Cartersville job. It would have been the spring of his 8th grade year. And I wanted to have a meeting with all the 8th grade boys that were rising 9th grade football players, and going into it, you kind of do research and homework on the job. And I knew that we had a rising junior that was going to be a big time quarterback prospect. And then we had potentially this rising 9th grader that had a really good middle school season. And I heard there was some hype around his name. So I go over there, and it didn't take me long to find him in the middle school cafeteria. He was about a head and a half taller than everybody when he came walking in, but very, very quiet, respectful kid. Introduced himself and then went and sat down just like everybody else. So my first impression of him was, wow, this kid is tall, but other than that, he's very quiet and very humble.
Hey, Joey, we've heard so much about Trevor and his performance on the field. Off the field, to me, I think what is so striking is that he's dealt with this hype or expectations or whatever you want to call it since his ninth grade season, and it's never crushed him. How has he dealt with that, and how has it been so easy for him to deal with that?
Man, he just, again, he's very humble young man. He's not defined by success or failures on the football field. You know, he understands that life is bigger than that. You know, so if he makes a good play or makes a bad play, he's ready to play the next play, regardless of what happened before. You know, so that's really kind of the approach that he takes.
Coach, what's Trevor's family like?
Oh man, his family's awesome. Got a great parents, mom and dad. Jeremy and Amanda are phenomenal people. They support all their children and everything that they do. You know, he's got an older brother who's as talented of an artist as Trevor is, a football player. Really talented young man. Got a younger sister that's involved in all kinds of sports, and they support her just the same. You know, so he comes from a really strong family.
Joey, what makes him unique from – I'm sure you've coached a lot of young guys in your time that you think are really special players and that they get it and they understand it and they go on and some might even go on and play in college football, maybe even the NFL. What makes him unique from the other guys you've coached and other guys you've seen at the high school level?
Oh, man, that's a good question. Overall, his talent and his skill set is better than anybody that I've coached. Anticipation is really good. Accuracy is really good. But when I used to tell people this, I've probably said it a million times when people ask me about Trevor, you know, that whether it be a college recruiter or somebody doing an interview, that Trevor's the real deal in every category. He's a great, phenomenal person. He was a great teammate, you know, in the tops, you know, as far as a student, you know, just you pick a category that you want to find out about, work ethic, he's going to check all the boxes.
Coach, I want to go back to something you said earlier. So when you took the job, you knew you had a rising big-time junior QB prospect, and obviously Trevor eventually gets the job. What was that process like? How did Trevor handle that process? Because we then saw him do it again at Clemson with Kelly Bryant.
Yeah, very similar situation. You know, going into it, Miller Forrestall was a rising junior, 6'5", at the time, probably 190 pounds, 195 pounds. Trevor was a rising freshman at the time, was probably 6'3". I'm not even going to try to guess his weight then. He was tall and skinny. And we just kind of approached the competition on a day-to-day basis. You know, it's, hey, look, let's show up and work today, and as long as you come today to try to be better than you were yesterday, we're going to move forward with this deal. And if one of you develops a hot hand, we're going to go with a hot hand. So we did that through summer 7-on-7s. We got into the season. Maybe game 4, Trevor had really kind of just made some better plays than Miller had made at quarterback. And again, this is a testament to Miller Forrestall. Now Miller comes to us and he says, Coach, look, I mean, what are we going to do with this quarterback thing? He said, I can't make the plays this freshman's making. You know, and at the time, Miller was like the number 21 prospect in the country, according to Rivals. He said, "But I love you. I love this program. I still want to, you know, play here and find something to do." So we moved him to tight end. We moved Miller Forrestall to tight end. Miller goes on, signs a scholarship with Alabama at tight end, plays for them, started for them for about 3 years, and hopefully gets taken in the draft this year. You know, and then the rest was history for Trevor as well.
Joey, oftentimes we hear about these young guys that are picked high in the draft that, you know, they're either close to their ceiling or they're at their ceiling. How far away do you think is Trevor from his ability to be right at the top of his ceiling as far as a player?
Yeah, you know, I think, you know, Clemson says it all the time, so I don't want to sound, you know, cliche with it, but the best is yet to come for him. You know, he's always looking for ways to improve. Always trying to find ways to better his game, to better his craft, looking to get bigger, faster, stronger, learning more and more about the game daily. So, I mean, I think with his arm talent, his cerebral capabilities, his love for the game, I really think the sky's the limit.
Coach, what would be your advice to Urban Meyer in terms of coaching Trevor?
Shoot, I don't know. You know, Trevor's the type of player that you got to coach him and lead him in the right direction, but he's self-driven, he's self-motivated. He knows the second he makes a mistake, So my advice, I guess, is just to put good people around him. He's going to make the team better just because of his leadership and who he is and the way that he's going to approach things every day. But just get those good people around him.
Joey, the Clemson coaches say that they've never seen a guy in the film room like him. Like, he's not only is he a junkie, he just sees things and sees it quickly and absorbs it quickly. Was it like that for you as well when he was younger?
Oh yeah. That was one of the first impressions to where he just sees the game fast. He came out to spring practice with us as an eighth grader. So going into that ninth grade year, that spring, we brought him and maybe a couple other guys up to go through spring ball, and we're throwing a 4 vertical concept, middle field open deal. We, basic bend to read by the number 2 receiver. And as soon as that linebacker walled and let him clear, the second that he cleared that linebacker, Trevor hit the kid in the ear hole with the ball. And the ball goes flying in the air. But that's a junior, senior type throw anticipation. And this kid was making it at the spring of his 8th grade year. So just from having the it factor and understanding and processing the game, he really, really put time in and really, you tell him one time and he's got it, and as a coach, you better make sure you remember what you told him, 3 weeks ago. You're on the sideline, you're trying to make an adjustment with him. He said, Coach, 3 weeks ago we said this. And you have to say, oh, wait a minute. All right, we're going to treat it a little differently this time. He just remembers stuff, very, very intelligent.
That's awesome in terms of hearing stories like that. Do you have a favorite Trevor Lawrence performance?
Oh, man, he the Bartram Trail game, and I know that'd be familiar to
Sure.
Jacksonville area people, right? Bartram Trail came up and played us. We played on ESPN. It was Joey Gatewood and Riley Smith, I think, were the quarterbacks there at Bartram Trail, and Trevor was with us, and those guys were airing it out all over the field all night. We ended up winning it in a close one late, but I think he threw for over 400 yards and just had an exceptional performance on a really big stage for a high school player.
Joey, you were at USF last year, then you got back to the high school game this year. When you're coaching, do you find yourself comparing players to the idea of what you had with Trevor for 4 or 5 years at Cartersville?
No, you can't do that. It's like the year after Trevor left Cartersville, once he graduated and went to Clemson, we had to replace 18 of 22 starters. We had a quarterback that was going to be a good player, T. Webb, who ended up, he signed with Louisville.
Right.
But and everybody asked about that, how's T going to handle the expectation after Trevor? Well, nobody expected him to be Trevor, and I'm not comparing anybody else to Trevor. Trevor is Trevor. Everybody else is everybody else. So I just, with these kids, I think it's unfair to kids to try to put an expectation on them of that, because again, I think, Trevor Lawrence is a generational talent, in my personal opinion. So it'd be unfair for me to compare him to somebody else or compare somebody else to them. So I just want the kids to be the best version of themselves that they can be.
Joey, what was it like? Trevor goes as a true freshman and dissects Alabama to win a national championship. And then he comes back to Cartersville. What were you expecting that there could be any change, and how did he handle that process of almost instantaneously becoming the face of college football?
Yeah, no, he handled it like he's handled everything else. From being the number 1 player in the country coming out of high school and having every college in and out of our door, notoriety, people stopping him in public. He's handled it the same way all throughout his life, as far as I know. So there's really no change in him. He's still the same person with the same values that approaches life the same way.
So Joey, the number 1 overall pick, typically a 50-50 deal, 50% mega, 50% or bust. You've been around football a long time. What's your projection for Trevor?
I think it's, in my opinion, I think he's gonna make. There's no indicator whatsoever. From anything in his life, from character to whatever, there's no indicator that he will not be successful at the next thing that he does.
And one thing, too, that I think is intriguing about Trevor, we heard Dabo talk about this at his pro day, that he doesn't just have a high school sweetheart. He has a junior high sweetheart, and obviously he and Marissa are getting ready to be married next month. How much has she helped him, in your opinion?
I think, again, with a lot of things in his life, there's been a lot of consistency. So the good things in life don't change, right? So when he found the one that he knows is the one, that hadn't changed, and truth, I told somebody that this morning, truth is always truth. Good things really don't change, So I think just the stability there and the consistency there has probably helped him a little bit.
What will it be like for you when he runs out onto the field to take his first NFL snap in Week 1 next year?
I mean, I'll be excited, but it's no different than when he ran out there as a gangly high school freshman. He's still the same to me. I love him and I talk to him quite often, and very rarely do we talk about X's and O's. We talk about how his heart is and how he's dealing with things and just life in general. So I'll be super, super proud of him, but I'm proud of him. I'd be proud of him if he didn't take another snap, because of who he is and not what he does.
Absolutely, and his faith is really important to him as well. Talk a little bit about your conversations with him about that and how far he's come in that arena.
Oh man, I've seen him grow tremendously. He's always been grounded in his faith, but you guys know when you go to college, you kind of figure out who you are. You kind of get away from your parents, their instruction and guidance a little bit, and they hope and pray that they kind of pushed you in the right direction. But when that faith starts becoming real, it's when you kind of get out there on your own and have to go through some things. And he's done that and held on to that faith, and it's really shaped him into who he is. And now seeing him grow as a leader, being able to voice his faith and to take a stand for the things that he believes in really, really makes me proud. I'm more proud of that stuff than I am, the fact that he threw 5 touchdowns in a game or whatever the case may be. I'm a whole lot more proud of him using the platform that this game of football affords in the manner that he's using it.
Great stuff, Joey King. We can't thank you enough for your help. We really appreciate it, and we'll look forward to seeing Trevor continue to grow and shine here with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Thank you so much for your time today, Joey. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Thank you, Joey.
All right, guys.
You're listening to the 1010XL TrevorCast, brought to you by our friends at Claude Nolan Cadillac, beginning lasting relationships since 1905.
All right, appreciate Joey King's time, and once again, appreciate our friends at Claude Nolan Cadillac for sponsoring the TrevorCast. If you need a vehicle, go see our friends at Claude Nolan Cadillac, beginning lasting relationships since 1905. All right, Matt, a lot of good stuff there from Joey King. What was your biggest takeaway?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because Joey's been a high school coach all his career. He's, with the exception of 1 year, last season, he joined Jeff Scott at South Florida to be the tight ends coach there, and I think he got a unique perspective of coaching in college football as well as high school. So he kind of gave us the idea of what that transition is like. And now we see what's the transition going to be like to the NFL. And I think that's the big question. All that we've done now and all these podcasts say the big question in all of them still remains, what happens when he gets to the NFL? Because as we all know, it's a 50-50 proposition in the history of the NFL draft as number 1 overall quarterbacks. 50 of them win, 50 of them bust. And I don't see a bust. I don't think anyone I've ever talked to about Trevor sees a bust. But it's still interesting to see how you can build this up and get to the point where, okay, here we are, come September, let's see this thing play out day one.
Yeah, no question. And I think, again, the other part of it that I like is, and Joey kind of fit in with what others have said, the only concern on Trevor Lawrence is what the Jaguars put around him.
Right.
It's all environmental with what he's going to have to work with and what kind of environment he's going to have to work with. And if you feel optimistic, as I do, about where the Jaguars are going with Urban Meyer and the talent that they've brought in free agency, but also still having the 10 picks in the draft. Really exciting time. All right, well, that's going to wrap us up for another edition of TrevorCast. Once again, thanks to Claude Nolan Cadillac for sponsoring us. Claude Nolan Cadillac, beginning lasting relationships since 1905. Next week, Matt, it's going to be fun. We're going to talk to Grace Rayner, who covers the Clemson Tigers for The Athletic. So she's going to give us her perspective on covering Trevor Lawrence, which I think will be a lot of fun. But until then, thank you so much for watching the TrevorCast.